The next part of the summit is the Mind the Gap Directors Forum. And we have a group of people, directors, who all have films at the Mill Valley Film Festival. And I would like to invite them to join me. We have Liz Cairns, who is here with Inedia. Alex Hedison, who's here with Alok. Biliana Grozdanova, here with Eastern Western. Marina Grozdanova, also here with Eastern Western. And Tracie Laymon, who's here with Bob Trevino Likes It. Welcome. Take a seat. We're kind of close because we're also filming this. I'm going to put my water down for now. I may end up standing for part of this, I can see. So welcome to everybody. And thank you all for being here at Mill Valley Film Festival, and especially at Mind the Gap. I hope everyone is getting suitably inspired this morning. I know that I am. I'm going to actually ask you, just to begin with, if you could just introduce yourself very, very briefly. And I'll pick up on this later, but where have you come from and where are you going to? In other words, what is your past and future life? So I come from a background as a writer, director, designer, and I ended up as a film curator. But I see that those things are in me, both in my past and in my future. So I'm going to start with you. Just let us know your name, the name of your film, and your past and future life.
My name is Tracie Laymon. I'm the writer-director of Bob Trevino Likes It. My past life, I started as a photojournalist for the news, which I think created a lot of empathy, so that helped a lot. And my future life, I thought you knew. I'm here to find that out. So.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marina Grozdanova, one of the co-directors of Eastern Western. I come from a documentary background, independent filmmaking with my sister, as well as non-scripted programming for television. And this is first feature narrative, so I think that's where the future is headed. Great.
My name is Biliana Grozdanova. I'm also the co-director of Eastern Western. I've been making documentaries with my sister for the past 10 years. I also work in commercials, and this is our first narrative. So yes, hopefully that is what the future holds.
Hi, I'm Alex Hedison, and I'm the director of Alok, a short documentary. And my past life, there are many, many, many things, but among them I was an actor. I'm a fine art photographer. My future life, I'm hoping, continues to be in the directing realm. And the work I do is always about the transition between these identifiable points. So it's always about the change and the transformation between the past and the future.
Right.
My name is Liz Cairns. I'm the writer-director of Inedia. And in my past life, I've done so many odd jobs to support myself over the years. You'd need a lot of time to hear the list. But as I was making my short films, I started working as a production designer, and that sort of began to support me more and more. And then I made my first feature, Inedia, and I've shifted away from production design. And now I'm looking to my next feature, which is a documentary, actually. So that's been really wonderful to shift into the doc space.
Well, that's actually a really interesting place to start, because I know that two people here have gone from documentary into narrative, and Alex, I think you are intrigued by narrative as well. Let's talk about storytelling in general. Maybe if I'm going to... Okay, when you have people who are sisters who work together, I really want to honor each of you. So whoever takes this first is fine by me, but it's not to the exclusion of the other sibling. Could you talk a little bit about the nature of storytelling that was informed in your narrative feature from your background in documentary?
Shall I? Okay. So, yeah, we come from a documentary background where obviously you work with real stories, real people, and we started primarily in the music space, making music documentaries, and I think also collaborating with other filmmakers in the doc space, and I think that informed our current narrative in many ways. Our cast. What happened? What happened?
It's okay, Biliana. It just fell backwards.
It's fine. Sorry.
One of the wonderful things about being outdoors is that we are actually outdoors. There is sun, there is wind, and we will experience all of those today.
I gasped, and she thought there was a bear behind her.
Well, there's actually a real grizzly bear in our film, so we can talk about that later. But in so many ways, documentary has influenced our narrative approach. And one of the ways I'd like to talk about is casting primarily non-professional actors. Oh, there it goes again. Just that. That's okay.
It does, yeah. Okay, thank you, Dan.
Just kidding, yeah.
Primarily non-professional actors, and really incorporating elements of their backstories into the narrative of the film. We had an outline, a vision, an arc where we knew the story, where we wanted the story to go, but also we let a lot of the characters lead the story, take agency, co-write with us, co-create. So I'd say that was one of the main points.
That's really interesting. Yeah, and Alex, your film is a documentary. Did you find that the characters, or a character particularly up center in your film, was driving what exposed the story of the film?
Absolutely. Alok is this incredible human who really... they led me to an understanding that made this film. So the film, often with content that focuses on trans issues and the LGBTQ plus community, it's more about that than it is about being human. And our film is not really about a trans story necessarily. It really is about being human, and being human means embracing, as Rachel and Angela so beautifully articulated, embracing the many possibilities at once. So we can be excited and we can be in fear. We can be filmmakers, we can be mothers. Being human means exceeding the boxes and categories that society tries to police us into. And it means to be part of communities like this one, where we find ourselves. So that is, the film is about Alok, but it's also about me, and it's about us.
Right. So you find the greater issue through the individual issue.
Exactly.
Yeah. Liz, with Inedia, what were the roots of that for you, and does that connect with what has just been said?
Well, I know many people in the audience haven't seen the film.
Yeah, tell us a little about. Just give us
sure, I'd love to.
The nutshell of what it is.
Yeah, so several years ago, even I think as long as 8 years ago, I started reading stories of people who claimed to be nourished by light and by a kind of divine energy. And some of these people said, I haven't eaten for 4 years or 11 years or 1 year. And I found the story so compelling and fascinating and very disturbing. And so I began researching that practice, and that research, took me down, different paths, and researching stories in the medieval ages, like Catherine of Siena. These often women who claim to forego all food and be fed by divine energy or by God. And of course, there was the Victorian fasting girls as well, where there was many women who really drew on food abstention as a form of spiritual expression. And so these contemporary stories really resonated with me, and I really wanted to understand what was at the root of it. And I had the opportunity to travel to Peru. I spent time with a group of people who were either claimed to be nourished by light or were striving to be nourished by light. And it was there when I recognized, wow, this is a very personal story. I really see my own anxieties around food in these people. I had disordered eating when I was a young person, and though I'd been in recovery for a long time, I really could understand like somebody's desire to relinquish all dependence on food. And so I wanted to explore, an eating disorder narrative in a way I hadn't seen on screen, which really captured the complexity and the depth of what a woman goes through, or in particular, the woman in the story who's having health issues. And those health issues that are mysterious and confounding lead her down this dangerous path. And ultimately, she has to, find a form of self-nourishment, I suppose, and confront her relationship to food.
So similarly, there's finding, like a broader relationship with the topic as there is with the specificness of it. With Bob Trevino, tell us a little bit about that and its origin story.
All right. So I grew up with a narcissistic father. As I learned, there's no shortage of narcissistic fathers. But tragedy plus time is comedy. So
can you say that again?
Tragedy plus time is comedy. One of these times that my dad was mad at me and disappeared, I put his name into Facebook. I thought, well, he won't call me back. Maybe he's on Facebook. And so I put his name into Facebook and accidentally friended another man with his name. and this gentleman was so kind to me just for the sake of being kind for quite some time. And it healed me in a way that, tons of therapy. And I mean, I don't get choked up. It's a comedy. But it really helped to heal me. And I felt just really compelled to tell this story because these small acts of kindness can really, really change the world. So.
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that I'm seeing coming up here in this conversation. The one is about healing, and the other is about spirituality. And one of the things that I notice about the creative process as a whole is that it always feels to me to be something that is very much in alignment with spirituality. That the roots of creativity and the way that they manifest in any art form are very much like the way that we experience spirituality. Please take that and discuss. Would someone like to pick
it up?
Great, okay.
When we use words like spirituality, I think they've often been co-opted. And so it's important, I think, for ourselves to define what that means.
Go for it, yeah.
And so spirituality for me feels like a communion between a kind of groundedness and a divine. It feels like a verb more than a noun. It's an action. It's something that is in process and always unfolding. It's a searching and a researching and a continued desire to commune. And sometimes that communion can be in this moment with all of you, with a focus of what it means to be women filmmakers. What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean? What does even gender mean? I can go down that route, but I won't. I'll stay on for spirituality. But I just think, again, I guess I'll leave it at that it's more of a verb of spiritually, of moving towards something that is greater than ourselves, than just the finite mind that we have, that it's in communion that we find it.
Yeah. So in communion, and I'm going to come to you because we need to get your voice on here. In shooting East and Western, and in that process, the creative process behind it, do you feel that there was that sense of communion with your crew, with your actors? And what did that look like for you?
Oh, absolutely. We have a core team that's very, very small, just 4 people. And
Wait, you made all that film with 4 people?
Well, the core team is just 4. Okay. Of course, with our actors and the rest of the crew, we were, up to, 20 or so. But the core creative team, I would say, is very small. And we went out to Montana ourselves and really allowed the cast that we found there to kind of guide us through these locations in Montana. And so the fact that they were bringing us into their homeland and allowing us to connect with just their community. And as, let's say, outsiders to that space, we really just went through them to be able to craft this story. So that in general felt very communal, just as my sister was saying, co-crafting the story with authentic people. We basically felt like family during the process of filming, and we're still friends with them today. And it was incredibly just heartwarming the way in which we finally pieced it together. So definitely.
Any other observations on that?
Well, since my film deals with chosen family, and I feel like we become family with our cast and crew, and even us up here in the audiences that we meet. Yeah. And so it sounds like all of us like to challenge perceptions, it's very important to me, and I hear it in all of you. And so I think there's such a beautiful community that happens with the chosen family that we find every step of the filmmaking process.
Yeah. Would you like to add to that, Liz?
Well, I think it was for my project, because community and well-being was such an anchor point of the story, we really tried to honor that in the way that we made the film. So the structure of the film, and also my experiences as a production designer have really shifted the way that I make work. So I've often worked on projects where I come away profoundly depleted physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so going into my own film, I wanted to find a way, okay, how do we create a structure where we take care of the crew and we take care of one another? Easier said than done, especially with limited resources. So we were filming on an active, intentional community where the crew members lived and worked and the cast lived and worked. It was a farm, so they fed us. We had beautiful food. And yet it was still like profoundly challenging. So I think that's something I'm trying to bring forward into my next project, which, the doc format, I think lends itself a lot better to a more caring structure. Narrative is just so or spread so thin. Yeah. So it's something I'm very actively thinking about. I think we were successful in some ways on our project, creating this feeling of communion and care, but it's an evolving process.
It really is. And, along with communion, there's also collaboration. And I would love for each of you just to talk a little bit about how your experience of the collaborative process in the context of your current project. If it, is it different from what you'd experienced before? And I remember when we first met, we had a brief conversation about collaboration, and it was something that I'd been thinking about a lot in terms of this panel, because everybody is making a first something, whether it's a first narrative or a first film or a first something. So who were your key collaborators, and how did you build trust with people? What did you depend on? And what did you discover in that process? Who'd like to jump in first? I can tell you. You can go for it.
So my cinematographer, John Rosario, is amazing. He had him watch Joey Soloway's lecture at TIFF about the female gaze over and over and over.
Wait. Has everyone seen that?
Yeah.
Okay, this is something. Would you want to just tell us what it is?
Sure. Yeah, I call it the feminine gaze because I want to invite everybody in. But it's a looking. You're not looking at people. You're seeing them. You want to invite them into the experience. So instead of what does someone look like, you're like, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? And my movie is really much. All my stories are really about seeing people and being seen. So I want to invite the audience in. And so.
But also you're referencing the talk that Joey Soloway gave, which you can find online.
That's where I got it.
Yeah.
So it's just really inviting them in. I feel like the camera is in the scene. So anyway, so we watched that, and John changed as a cinematographer. He changed over the course of the film. He's I want to work with him for the rest of my life. He's I'm going to cry every time. But he's just incredible.
Get some Kleenex, please.
Yeah, please. And Anisha Achara, my editor, was just absolutely incredible. She, you know, the assemblies, I'm so vulnerable in the assemblies, and she was right there with me, speaking truthfully, but being kind. And Sydney Marquez and Jacques Brodbar, you know, I was always looking for my people in my shorts and my pilots and everything. And I was like, gosh, they're busy. I can't work with them again. Or, you know, and I feel like I found them on this team. So collaboration is everything. I feel like once again, we became a little family. Yeah. And I wanted to find people that I would continue to work with. Not, you know.
Yeah, so you're building relationships.
Yeah.
Being truthful and being kind. Yeah. Anyone want to run with that in the context of collaboration? Who are your key collaborators? Were they kind?
Yes. All of them were very kind. And yes, speaking of collaboration, I mean, obviously we have co-collaborated for over a decade, and it begins with, you know, bouncing off ideas and being receptive to each other's ideas. So it always starts between us, but then this core crew that we talk about, just wanted to shout him out, Cameron Wheelis, director of photography, and Brandon Regina, co-producer over there. We all came out together. You know, bouncing off ideas with them, and everybody really has a scene that they created in this movie. I mean, we take the directing credit for better or for worse, but everybody can see their ideas and their creative contributions in the whole film. And then specifically the two main leads of the film, Igor Galyasovich, who is the man from the East who goes west and meets his friend and mentor, Duncan Vizane, who is a horse rancher. They also contributed a lot of their, as I mentioned before, personal aspects of their lives. Igor's son is actually his son in the movie. Duncan Vizane, his wife and his two daughters are in the movie, and they very much collaborated with us to create this true portrait of what life in the late 1800s might have looked like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For the last 25 years, I've worked as a fine art photographer, and that, for the most part, in terms of production, is a solo enterprise. So engaging in this film and making it was a real experience. And this is what we talked about, Zoe, about collaboration. So I worked with Megan Lennon, who's here, producer, Elizabeth Bodwin and Natalie Sherinian. And we became this team, and together we made decisions. We were in conversation. We were producing this piece of work. And to get to your point about kindness and truth, there was a moment in the process where we were trying to raise money for it, and I was talking about the film, and it was still a rough cut, and I was minimizing it. And I was saying, well, you know, it's under 20 minutes, and I was making excuses for it, and the part of me, you know, yes, and this is when we talk about embracing all things, I can feel proud, and I can also feel shame. That is part of being human. And in that moment, I was feeling embarrassed about what I had made, that it wasn't good enough, and I was labeling it. And I said it out loud in this meeting. And the next day, the producers came to me, and they sat me down. They said, we have to have a talk about that. You can't do that again. Because when you degrade yourself, you're degrading all of us, because we're in community and we are working together and we are advocating for you, and we're going to ask you to advocate for yourself. And it was really an important moment, and I heard them. So that for me is truth and kindness.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will take a nod from the goddesses on
That's right. She's saying, yes, lean into it. Lean into truth and kindness.
Dare you say anything after that?
That was incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I think I really resonate with that mix of pride and shame around our work. And for me, my film was really moving through shame around an eating disorder and bringing it into the light, which has been profoundly healing. So I think, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's so true. Picking up on something that was said earlier, the word resilience, that had, you know, when I wish we could get those lights on the other side of that thing. I don't know that we can. Sorry. Could we have someone direct this and another person? Oh, there you go. Thank you. Yay. All right. I don't know whether it'll make all the difference, but it may make some of the difference. Thank you, everybody.
Resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those words that were coming up for Rachel have really framed a lot of thoughts for me. And she chose resilience. Was there something in your current project where resilience was up front and center? And if so, can you share that with us, please?
No. How much time do we have?
No, I'm not sure. We don't have much more time. Can you?
Okay.
We do? Oh, fabulous. Okay, we have longer than I thought.
I can hurry.
No. It's all okay.
Our first day of shooting was the day of the strike. So it's the actor strike. So the second day we went down, but it really bonded our team. You know, we had really we first day we shot, second day we were down, and then we all came together strong. We were in the trenches on the second day, like, what are we gonna do? And so I'll just share that one. So
okay.
Yeah, I'll speak to the resilience of just having to endure and travel through so many different locations in rural Montana. We experienced all kinds of weather, 2 separate shoots, and we had deep snow, we had, rains, and luckily also beautiful weather. But we pretty much did 2 locations a day at one point for the longest of the shoots, and that just required resilience on behalf of, us as directors, prompting those transitions, our cast and crew, needing to be just aware of all of that, obviously, and everyone was always on time and ready and prepared, and so I think that resilience in terms of the natural environment was, incredible to experience.
I'll just add a quick note on resilience in the face of not having a lot of money and not letting that stop you. We operated on a very low budget. We self-funded in-kind contributions from our cast and crew, and in the end we got some post-production funding and a grant from the Office of Film in Montana. So, but kind of launching a film without maybe having all of your funds, I'm just open about that. We decided to do it and, raise for post and figure that out along the way. So yeah, just not letting no money ever stop you.
When Angela and Rachel invited us to meditate on the word resilience, the first thing that came up to me was resistance. I thought, I wish they had picked a different word. And then, because Angela suggested that we sit with it for a minute and see what comes up, I sat with it. And what came up for me next was tolerance and acceptance. So I wonder if resilience can be more than just a steely refusal to allow something in and get through anyway, to keep on and to carry on in the spite of difficulty. What if resilience was a kind of acknowledgement that we have been through so much already, that we know so much already, and that we are able to tolerate many things at once, and we're able to accept what is and use the tools that we have, use the community that we're part of, use the truth and kindness, and get through in a way that's maybe softer and more open and still determined.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always after Alex. Well, just let him speak.
I know we got to mix this up a little bit,
I guess, that it's just such profound stories. I'll just tell an anecdote. We shot on film, because the film, I've shot my previous work on film. I learned on film. I really love it because it makes it so intentional about what you're creating. I thought, yeah, we've got to shoot on film for this project. It's so much about light and texture and the body and like the physicality. So we have to shoot on film. And I really pushed for it. And we started getting dailies back from the lab, and all of the stock was damaged. Oh. And it was a lab in Baltimore called Color Lab, and they shut down their facility. They were like, we're so sorry, we ruined your film, the first batch. We're going to shut down our facility, clean everything, and boot back up. So they booted back up. We kept shooting, and we held on to our film. And then they said, yeah, we're ready for it. We sent...
You went back to the same lab?
We went back to the same lab. They cleaned it, and they started developing it again. They said, this is a stock issue. So we'd received, and I love Kodak. I'm not here to, nothing against Kodak, but we shot on damaged film stock, and over 70% of the negative was damaged. But it actually.
I hope Kodak stepped up for you.
No comment. Okay. But what I will say is, speaking of spirituality, I really sometimes.
Yeah, resilience and spirituality. Spirituality.
Sometimes we're too quick, I think, to find meaning in certain experiences. And for me, it took a lot longer. But what happened with that was we had this beautiful rest period. Yeah. So, normally you go right into post-production. And I got like 3 months while we figured this out. We had to do an insurance claim. Fortunately, we were insured. That insurance allowed us to, in Canada, we're very lucky. We have federal funding. We also have tax credits. So we were able to boost our tax credits because of the labor spent on the restoration, which was covered by insurance. And so myself and my producers were able to get paid, which was not going to be the case previously. So I'm so grateful for that now in retrospect, having unfolded.
Great notes for any filmmakers in the audience. Get insurance.
Yeah. Yes, if you're shooting on film. Yeah. Although I just shot a little project and I didn't get insurance. So we'll crossing fingers.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please do.
Did you use the same footage you had shot? Did they restore the film, or did you have to reshoot?
We fortunately didn't reshoot. We edited with the damaged film stock as we kind of we took some time away. We started editing with the damaged film stock. It essentially was metal flecks all over the negative. So the editor, it was a bit of an eyesore, but she was able to work with it.
But that's like a perfect example of resilience.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're speaking to a photographer. So film is
even
resilient.
If you're not talking after Alex.
Yeah.
And so something kids, on the feature, I'm not the one communicating with the lab. Our wonderful first AC and our cinematographer was communicating with the lab. So more recently, about a month ago, I'm going to shoot this little film on a Bolex. I'm going to go to the same lab. They were great. I called the guy at Color Lab, Scott Mueller, and he was like, I have been thinking about you. How are you? Are you okay? You're still making films? Oh my God. I was like, yeah, here I go again.
The whole idea of film about film recording a story. So film has this process, and then the lab processes the story, and how do they process it? And the film that's been degraded, but it's kind of expired is what it is. Yeah. And there's this incredible analogy of how our stories unfold over time, and they involve different elements, including the metal scraps, including the things that we don't want that we want to edit out. We want this clean, pristine film, but what if it had the imperfections? Yeah. And that the lab that they shut down trying to fix everything. In fact, it wasn't fixable, and that you folded it into your story. That's such an incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Analogy.
That is creativity at its heart and soul.
And one last little note. It's nice to be able to share it with everyone here. We did take it out of the press. I wrote a paragraph in the press kit. My producer was like, no.
Yeah. No, that's
because we want people to shoot on film. It's like so beautiful.
Yeah. I have two very quick comments, and then I'm going to ask for audience questions. The one is, I had noticed for years that a lot of films in 35 millimeter that I was seeing from Iran were kind of hazy. And I asked an Iranian filmmaker about it, and he said, it's because that guy that you've been working with for years, who is the head of I will not name the foundation but it's a government-run organization in Iran, was buying old stock from China. Mm-hmm. Wow. And I think there is like a generation of Iranian films that suffered as a result. the other thing is this. A few years ago, there was an anniversary year at the Cannes Film Festival, and for their swag bag, they had the names of every single person who had won the Camera d'Or over the 70 years, 75 years, whatever it was. It was beautifully designed. It was very cool. And I looked at it, and there was one woman, Jane Campion, as I'm sure you know. But then I looked at it some more, and there was nobody of Black African descent. And there were three sets of brothers. And I mention that just because this is the first time we've had female siblings at the festival. An anecdote as a segue to, would you like to ask some questions? Yes.
Your lives, because your film is very much about your life story. Yeah. So what are the kind of poignant aspects of your life that you bring to your art?
What are the poignant aspects of your life that you bring to your art?
Well, I definitely turn my pain. That's how I heal. I'm going
to stop you for a second because you've started every time. I'm going to have someone else start this time. I hate to that was obnoxious. I'm sorry, but let's shake it up a little bit. Yeah.
I'll just do this one for our parents. I think they are the resilience in our life. Do you continue?
Yeah, absolutely. In Eastern Western, family is a big component to it. And we wanted to represent really the struggle of the immigrant experience, moving around the world, coming to a new country. It's not evident at some times because parents really try and hide it from their children, what they're going through. And so with Igor, our main character who's raising a son, with the loss of his wife, it showcases a certain aspect of that struggle and that immigrant experience in that time period.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to go next, Liz?
Yeah, I guess I seem to be addicted to making films that are about profoundly painful experiences. So I don't know. I think that's just part of the way that we move as artists. We move through the things we've been through, and also that people connect with that and see themselves in that. Like Sarah was saying earlier, this idea of projection, even if you haven't experienced it directly, when you're watching something else on screen and you see some piece of what you're going through.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Things that you relate to. Really important. You go next, Alex?
Sure. I think that any artistic endeavor is the product of experience, bad, good, many things in between, and it's our expression of that experience. So certainly this film, Alok, was the fact that I was even interested in telling this story, that I recognized that there was something about Alok's message that was speaking to me specifically, and that felt like it was important to put out into the world right now. That was the result of experiences I had gone through, where I was trying to bring back into my life the parts of myself that I had exiled. My pain, my grief, the things that I didn't feel that were important or correct in terms of the curation of my life that I was presenting to the world. How I present as a woman, how I present as a gay woman, what that means, and how I had folded myself into these very neat and constrained boxes that no longer serve me. So Alok spoke to that pain, and the film speaks to the promise.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Hi. Alok has been hugely influential in my life. I think if you experience experience pain and you're an artist, like what are you going to do? You have to say something. But fortunately, I don't know. But if you experience some healing, I feel like we owe it to the world to share that, because if we were lucky enough to have it, then maybe it can affect somebody else.
Any other audience questions? Yeah.
Different rooms are trying to find funding or trying to have a voice collectively in the experience of the issue.
So, talking about the sibling experience and in pursuing things like funding, when you're doing something together.
I think in terms of the collaboration, I mean, it's always come really naturally to us. I always say it, she's my best friend, and our thoughts are pretty much united. So we share a lot of the same creative, forms of expression and ideas. And then when it comes to actually, putting it into practice, we both have different sets of strengths that we allow the other to, take kind of the reins and go with it. She is definitely a stronger producer, so I'll let you talk about the funding.
Thank you. That's not true. You're also my best friend. Yeah, once you get past the stage in your life where you're fighting over the same Barbie doll, then we really decided we wanted to just work together, never separate, and two brains are better than one. I also think you're a strong producer. We support each other when we can at all times. And as far as the entering a room as siblings, it's a fun juggle as we're doing right now, passing the ball off to each other. And yeah, I mean, just going back to funding, that's always difficult. That's always a struggle. Sorry, what was the? I lost my train of thought. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. We've got time for one last question, I think. Yeah.
So, Catherine Rozak, and I'm a filmmaker. Women at the top, women leaders in the arts, which all of these women are. And I wanted to just reflect on some of the words that came up in this discussion, because I just found them remarkable, because I don't see this in the discussion when we have male-identified filmmakers. One big word here was kindness. I thought we could reflect and go a little further on these, because they came up as topics in Mind the Gap, and also pride and shame. I don't hear any of this in discussion with male-identified filmmakers. So I guess my question is, what is our identity as women-identified filmmakers that these are such important topics? Could we talk about that? Thank you.
Who's going to jump in on that?
I might jump in on that.
Okay.
I really like that you identified those words. And kindness to me starts with compassion. And compassion starts with the willingness to be compassionate towards yourself. And that's so much about what my film is about, is that if we can embrace the parts of ourselves that seem that it's a one or another proposition, and we can bring it all into the fold, then I can do that with you. I can be more compassionate with you. And then in the world, I am more willing to accept the things that I don't necessarily understand, and I can approach them with a kind of curiosity and fascination instead of a fear and aggression. So I think that women-identified filmmakers are willing to feel their shame and their excitement, their pride. They're willing to do all of those things instead of just push aside one part and just plow through and be another thing. So when we do that, the quality of our storytelling is impacted and then impacts others exponentially. So that to me is a goal, to bring all of myself into the fold, to tell the stories about people in a nuanced way, and then to change our culture, to bring it to its fullest potential. I love every time you speak. I
didn't mean to suppress your voice. I just wanted to shake it up a bit. You'd know that, right?
I'm trying to be short. I want to talk about pride and shame. To me, the cure for my shame, which is very much in my film, was to talk about it. And I think that is a cure for a lot of us. You feel shame, you talk about it, you find out you're not alone. You're all alone. You don't know. And I think, therefore I am actually has a first part that people leave out. It's I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. So I had a different relationship with my insecurities and my doubt now. I think, I have doubt. That means I can have faith in myself, Nice. And that means I exist.
Beautiful.
So thank you.
Sure, I'll add about Pride this time. I think, having achieved this incredible world premiere here, it's really difficult to start thinking about how to feel pride in having, let's say, it come this far as filmmakers, and just envisioning your career ahead as a female filmmaker when, let's say, men don't have to experience that or don't question it as much. And so I do think that it's like a conversation you have with yourself, like how proud am I able to feel, and how can I share it with everyone in my team. And I think together as sisters, and obviously also as female filmmakers, we wanted to share that pride and that kindness with everyone on our team and not hold it for ourselves.
She said it.
Last words?
Oh, I'm okay. Well, I think something I thought about a lot during the feature, because, like I said before, my experience as a production designer, I've had some really damaging as I'm sure many people in this audience have. I think filmmaking, the structure of it is inherently exploitative, particularly to the crew and sometimes to the cast, many people involved in the process. And ultimately, as the filmmaker, you kind of come away with a film with something really tangible that you benefit from.
Right.
And a lot of people are sort of left in this wake of destruction. And so, I, on the one hand, I felt like, my care for the crew created some really difficult situations for me and for the producers as well. And sometimes I did think, well, other directors don't think about this stuff, and maybe I'm just, maybe I don't need to, but ultimately, like, that's just such an important piece for me. And also implicated that is like care for the land, care for the waste of a film. And I think that those are all implicated together. So I'm really thinking about how do we change the structure, not just adapt it, but really burn it down. And I'm, trying, and I'm listening to the ways other people are doing it and taking notes. And sometimes that does involve like enormous creative sacrifices on behalf of the filmmaker. So, yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. And I hope that everyone will see all of these films and many more over the next few days. Each one of you, I just so appreciate your creativity, your wisdom, and your openness to sharing your experiences with us today. This has been really beautiful. I don't know whether you guys are as inspired as I have been by all these, but thank you.
Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you, Zoe. No bias, but this is my favorite thing at the festival. We came over to do a walkthrough over here the other day, and it was getting hot. So we decided that in the next break, we would have popsicles. And I see we have popsicles on the horizon. So I'm going to suggest you can stand and stretch. It'll be a brief break, but we will offer you popsicles. Please receive them if you wish. Thank you.